in today's climate of TikTok trends and instant gratification, often it's only the most established artists, so your Nicki Minaj's, your Beyonce's, your Rihanna's, who can afford to go years between releasing albums or releasing songs. And the constant requirement for these newer artists to post and release constantly over and over again in order to stay relevant, in order to stay in the conversation, is the consequence of our new internet culture. Whilst, yes, Nicki and Drake, for example, use social media to promote their music, in the 2020s, the era we're in right now, it appears that social media success has overshot actual sales success. The effect of TikTok and streaming and the sort of festival effect means that people just want to see artists on stage for a really short period of time doing the songs that they recognize from TikTok. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you've never been here before, my name is Blessing Makosha. I'm a lawyer and a hip-hop head, and I make content about law and hip-hop. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about why there's such a disparity between the numbers that rappers are able to achieve on social media and the actual sales that they're able to produce when they release music. I'm going to be asking whether the quality of the music itself has declined and therefore fans are less interested in buying the albums, or perhaps there is something else to explain what's going on, and maybe the fact is that sales as a metric are no longer appropriate or relevant to really judge and determine an artist's success. If you're interested in that topic, then stick around and keep watching this video, and make sure that you like this video, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. And you can find me everywhere as Blessing Makosha for more law and hip hop content. So let's talk about sales in general. You know, what has happened and what has changed when it comes to artists and their record sales in the last decade or so. Well, since the early noughties, rap music has performed on the same commercial level as pop music, and artists who have been at the forefront of hip-hop music and culture for the past decade, such as Nicki Minaj and Drake, have competed against pop stars and have been able to pull in more album units sold than their most popular pop counterparts. This type of success has made it essentially impossible now for rappers who want to be on their level to do so without having significant sales and chart success. And you will find oftentimes, you know, one of the biggest things that's made Nicki Minaj such an attractive rival in hip hop is the fact that she makes so many sales. You know, she as a female rapper is undefeated, and you can see people sort of aim their careers around wanting to beat the records that Nicki set, because she has really changed what is considered possible for female rappers sales-wise. And then Drake is a phenomenon in and of himself. He has sales figures that, you know, are historical and they are legendary. And both of these artists were able to leverage social media during their come-ups in the 2010s. But the difference is, whilst, yes, Nicki and Drake, for example, use social media to promote their music, in the 2020s, the era we're in right now, it appears that social media success has overshot actual sales success. So what this means is that many artists are able to pull in hundreds of thousands of likes, millions of views. But when it comes time for them to put out music and for fans to buy it, very often artists are only very modestly over the 5-figure threshold. So for the rest of the video, I'm going to explore different reasons and factors behind how sales have declined, and give my opinions for overall when it comes to rappers and their sales, why the math just isn't mathing. So let's get into our first topic, that sales have been declining as a general trend for quite a while now. So over the past decade, the music industry has undergone a significant shift. The rise of digital music platforms and streaming services like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, YouTube has led to a decline in the sales of physical albums. And according to the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, global physical album sales declined by 13.7% in 2020, and while digital album sales actually increased by 6.5%. And in the United States, physical album sales have halved in the past decade. And this trend has had a significant impact on the sales of rap albums, obviously, as more and more people turn to streaming services to access their music and to watch their favorite music videos. The sales of physical rap albums have naturally declined. And this is especially true and quite painfully true for newer artists who may not have the same level of recognition as more established artists. And the main culprit for all of this is definitely the internet. I've mentioned streaming already, and the music industry has moved away from fighting streaming. So you had major legal battles against Napster, LimeWire, and other music piracy platforms. Shout out to my millennials who remember those. And they've moved from fighting to wholeheartedly embracing streaming and working hand in hand with streaming services like Spotify, Apple Music, like I mentioned, to promote their artists' music and to promote their personal brands. Whilst years ago, artists may spend months, even years working on an album, given how important that product was going to be for the artist's career. I mean, it's what the label would use to decide how they would invest in you in the future. Whereas they used to do that, in today's climate of TikTok trends and instant gratification, often it's only the most established artists, so your Nicki Minaj's, your Beyonce's, your Rihanna's, who can afford to go years between releasing albums or releasing songs. And the constant requirement for these newer artists to post and release constantly over and over again in order to stay relevant, in order to stay in the conversation, is the consequence of our new internet culture, which has been developing, but now it's absolutely insatiable. What's even sadder about this state of affairs is that it's been very well documented that streaming makes artists a very nominal amount of money in the grand scheme of things. And so the move towards everything being about content and streams, it doesn't necessarily put a lot of money into the artist's pocket. And certainly what they don't make from the streams of their music, they need to make elsewhere in brand deals, sales of merchandise, and of course, touring. So my next topic to talk about is touring, and I want to discuss whether touring should be the new metric of success that we use for rappers. So as the sales of physical albums have declined, like I've discussed, and the music industry has shifted towards streaming, many artists have had to look for different ways to measure their success. And one option that has been quite obviously popular is touring. Tours can be a massive source of income for an artist, and that is especially for those of them that are capable of organizing large and well put together shows. Even an independent artist with a modest fan base can build a lucrative career by selling tickets to shows and offering, for example, bundles with their merch and other opportunities for fans to connect with them. And there's another benefit as well for touring, and that's that record labels aren't as involved with the touring process as they are with the record making process. So there stands to be a lot of opportunity for the artists to recoup on the money that they generate from their tours and their shows. It gives artists more control over the way that they can present themselves and the way that they can interact with their fans. And like I mentioned, it gives them opportunities for them to make money from merchandise and other associated products that they can sell along with their tour. For example, intimate experiences with fans and meet and greets and stuff like that. This really can allow an artist, as well as making money, to develop a much more close and personal relationship with their fans than just social media may allow. So given that an artist with social media hype can use that hype to put up a link to tickets, and then people can buy those tickets and show up, should we use that to judge an artist's success over their sales? I can definitely see why tours and tour numbers, may be an effective metric, because at the end of the day, if you can't have people pop up to come and see you, do you really have that impact in the streets, or do you only have internet hype? I do think tours can provide a more complete picture of an artist's popularity and success. But I'll say at the end of the day, if you can inspire people to click purchase on a tour ticket, you should be able to inspire people to buy your music. And I think people passively streaming and then actively buying tour tickets, I don't necessarily think that's synonymous with each other. I think if an artist has fans who are dedicated enough to buy a tour ticket, those fans are also going to buy the merchandise, they're going to buy the actual physical music. I think what's getting confused is festivals. And I just want to say now, festivals are not tours. You'll have thousands of people who are there, but they could be there for any number of artists, and that's not necessarily you. And you'll be doing a short set. And I think the effect of TikTok and streaming and the sort of festival effect means that people just want to see artists on stage for a really short period of time doing the songs that they recognize from TikTok. They're not necessarily trying to sit through an entire set. So an artist may get lots of festival bookings because they've got, 3 or 4 songs that are super hype, super viral, get people jumping. But is that same artist necessarily going to be able to, say, pull off a world tour like Nicki Minaj has, like Drake has? Those artists have sales, and they can also sell out a crowd. And they can sell out a crowd on their own, as on their own billing. They don't need to be billed alongside, 10 other artists to get people to come out. They themselves are the show. And that's why I think it's important to distinguish between tours and festivals. So moving on to my next thoughts, and that's summarized as fans versus followers. And it follows on from what I just talked about in relation to touring. So in the digital age, it's easier than ever before for artists to build a large following on social media. I think a great case study is Ice Spice. After her song Munch went viral, she has now got millions of monthly listeners. Her social media engagement grows every day, and she's creating content with really notable platforms, collaborating and getting her name out there. She was able to do that in a very, very short space of time. But as the emphasis on streaming and social media grows and becomes essential at this point for all types of artists, it can be difficult for artists and rappers to distinguish between genuine fans and who's just following them for the trends and the hype, especially on platforms like TikTok, because trends there can drive enormous popularity to an artist and their song. And that can happen in a very short space of time. And that doesn't necessarily mean that people are getting to know the artist or they're really engaging with their story. And whilst it can be great to see those numbers, it can also come and go very, very quickly. And it's not uncommon for artists to find that as quickly as they got hot, they fall off. And you can have a lot of followers, but they're just sort of interested in the trends that you do. They're not necessarily interested in you and your artist story. Another point which I've addressed on my channel before in my video about why female rappers don't make deep or meaningful rap songs, the focus on streaming and instant gratification and catchy songs and hooks can discourage artists from actually making meaningful music that maybe just doesn't perform well on the algorithm, but it genuinely came from the heart. Instead of creating music that speaks to them and their audience, artists may feel pressure to create songs that they know are going to stream well and just perform well and give them the numbers. That's not necessarily what making good music is about, and especially in rap, that's not what rapping is about either. The pressure that artists are facing is the pressure to create a larger following, and ultimately the distinction between a fan and a follower is very, very important. Genuine fans are more likely to support an artist by, like I mentioned, buying their music, buying their merchandise, buying tickets to their shows. And those fans are going to support that artist throughout the duration of their career. You know, one of the most magical things about Nicki and the Barbs is the fact that as Nicki grew as an artist, the Barbs grew alongside her. And that's what we're currently missing in the way people are approaching building their fans and followers. You know, they're not necessarily quality filtering. You know, it's more about having the numbers there, but it's not necessarily about what is the quality of the audience that you've got that have put these numbers there on your page. So it's a bit of a bonus point, my last take on this before I conclude. I think another reason why rappers have struggled with low sales in recent years is because hip-hop has become just unrecognizably commercialized. And it kind of amalgamates everything I've already talked about in the video. But as hip-hop has gained mainstream popularity and artists like Nicki and Drake have gone pop, many artists have focused on building their personal brands and their popularity more than they have put energy into developing their artistry and making better music. That's why you've got artists like Saweetie with social media virality power. You know, her social media brand is crazy, but she was only able to sell 2,000 copies of her latest EP. 2,000 copies when you have millions of followers. There is a disconnect there. And Saweetie is very lucrative. You know, she's got brand deals, endorsements, her own brand, her YouTube channel. But those things make money off of her personality and her personal brand. But her music is not keeping the lights on. That doesn't mean that Saweetie isn't getting to a very big bag and she's not making money from other means, because of course she is. But what I want to highlight is that she can rely more on her brand than she can her music when it comes to sales. So this emphasis on personal branding and selling the brand can lead to a lack of authenticity in the actual music itself. And some artists may prioritize their image or whatever they're serving people on social media over their actual artistic integrity, and it just leads to music that lacks depth, lacks substance, and I don't really want to listen to it. It's very low vibrational music because this person isn't creating from a genuine space. And on top of that, the focus on personal branding can make it much easier for artists to gain a large following without necessarily being talented or good at rapping. With the right marketing strategy and a strong social media presence, it's possible for an artist with absolutely no talent to gain a large following, even though their music is not of high quality. Ultimately, and I've mentioned this on my channel a lot, talking about the commercialization of hip hop, the commercialization of the genre has led to a disconnect between some artists and their actual fans. Whilst it's important for artists to build a personal brand and to engage with their audience, it's also important for them to stay true to their artistic integrity and their artistic journey and their vision, and create meaningful music that fits within that vision. That's the kind of content that's going to resonate with fans. That's the kind of content that's going to keep an artist around for years and years and years. But by prioritizing their personal brand on social media above their actual music, these artists are really, in my opinion, losing the opportunity to build a dedicated and loyal fan base. So let's conclude this video up. In conclusion, the decline of rap album sales in recent years can be attributed to a number of factors, and those include the shift towards digital music and streaming platforms, the commercialization of hip-hop, and the emphasis on personal branding and social media hype over actual quality music. While streaming has made it much easier to reach a larger audience, which is great, it's also made it much more difficult for artists to sustain their popularity and actually build a dedicated fan base that's going to be there for them release after release after release. And in order to maintain career dominance in the digital age, it's very important for artists to adapt to changing trends, to make meaningful music that resonates with their audience, and that requires them to have an audience and know who that audience is and speak to them over time and grow with them over time and maintain a strong connection with all of them. And focusing on those factors will mean that there will be more artists like Nicki Minaj and Drake who are able to sustain their popularity for many decades to come, because they focused on building what was genuine and not just what was smoke and mirrors for social media. Ultimately, the success of an artist should be measured by more than just album sales. I can admit that. I do think that the era of album sales has declined because the numbers say so. But I don't necessarily think that that means that the demand for music has declined. It just may be that people are more interested in having lots of singles than they are one complete body of work. And if we consider all of these ranges of factors that can go in, we can get a more complete picture of an artist's impact on the music industry and the level to which they are successful. But regardless, irrespective of all of that, the decline in sales figures for rappers, the math that just is not mathing, isn't completely explained by just switching to looking at touring. I do think, like I mentioned, if somebody's going to buy a tour ticket, they're going to buy a sales ticket. So if you take away festivals, how many times and opportunities do artists get to run their own tour, run their own shows, work with their team, liaise and put it together? And if you're able to get tickets, people to buy tickets to come to that, rather than to see you for 10, 15 minutes in a festival set, I think that demonstrates much more. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure that you support your local rapper by buying a copy of their album today. And I would love to hear your thoughts. Why do you think rappers' sales have decreased? Why do you think the math just isn't mathing about, you know, the girls in hip hop, the boys in hip hop, and their ability to shift some units? Why are Nicki and Drake still the only rappers that appear to be able to shift any significant amounts of units? I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. As always, make sure you like this video, leave a comment and subscribe, and make sure that you follow me, Blessing Makosha, on everything for more of my law and hip hop content. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.